Hi everyone, welcome back to Crafting at Whimsy Wonderland. My name is Stacy. This is part 2 of my country Christmas snowman. Okay, for this next step I'm using Waverly's chalk paint. This is ivory. I had about a little over a third of a bottle of ivory left, but I'm out of white chalk paint. My Walmart keeps not getting it in. So what I did is I mixed some regular white apple barrel paint in with the ivory paint and made a full bottle. So I didn't want bright white. I wanted it to be just a tiny bit yellow. So a third of a bottle of ivory and the rest of it is just white apple barrel craft paint. And so I'm going to go ahead and get these painted up. I'm hoping that one coat will do, but I will probably have to do two, maybe three. Okay, so make sure you cover your work surface so you don't get paint on everything like I usually do. Like right there. And with chalk paint, I try to kind of brush in one direction because it tends to glob up on me pretty quick. Maybe it's just drying out too fast. I don't know. I try not to go over it terribly too many times. I try to keep plenty of paint on my brush, and I'm trying to let my paintbrush go around the edge too. I don't want to get a bunch of paint on the back, so I wasn't thinking. Probably should have done the paper on the back at the end, but you know, live and learn. I wanted to spend enough time showing you what I was doing with the back. The little tip I have for you, if you have a paintbrush that you don't want to dry out, put it inside a baggie or wrap it up in some wax paper. You'll have an hour or so before it starts to set, and that'll give you time to dry in between coats here. So I'm going to go grab some wax paper and do that. I'll be back once I have the second coat on these guys. So I've got all of the snowman bodies drying, and what I did is I took the hat pieces that I had cut off. I took them out to my husband's saw and I cut them into carrot shapes. And now I'm going to paint them all orange. Probably got kind of a scruffy brush. Sometimes if I'm doing a lot of these little things and I forgot about it on this one, I'll put like a little piece of double-sided tape on the back side just to glue them down so that I can just brush them on the table like this and not have to pick them up and handle them. And then the little double-sided tape just holds them still for me. But I forgot to do that. Alright, I just need to let these dry and I'll be back in a little while to show you what I do next. Okay, it is time to start painting the faces and shading and whatnot on these snowmen. You're going to dip into your paint using a dry brush technique and make sure that you dry the brush off on a paper towel so that the paint brush is really dry as you're dry brushing the edges of your snowman. You don't want it to get too dark. And you're just going to kind of want to rub in. And then the next step will be to put some faces on here. Okay, so I got out another paint palette just because I'm still going to be messing with the brown ones on some other ones I have off camera. I've got some pink, some white, and some black. And I'm going to start with painting the cheeks onto my snowman. And to do that, you want to make sure you have a pretty pale pink. And I'm going to dry brush my cheeks on. I like to go in a little bit of an oval. Don't like them to be super solid. Okay, so you're going to start with the cheeks. And then, like I showed you, I had the noses. So I'm just going to lay the nose on there for right now. And then I'm going to do the eyes. And for the eyes, so straight down. and I dip my dowel every single time. Now, some people like their snowman eyes to touch. I'm not one of those people. And a lot of times I like my eyes to be kind of oval, in which case I'll just go up and down. I set the dowel down and I just go back and forth, and that makes an oval eye. Okay. Then I also need to do the mouth. And so I'm kind of figuring where my noses are going to land. And then I always start with the dot in the middle. I take my nose off. And I try to do odd number spots. And these spots do not have to be perfectly round. Okay, this one's going to have 7. And then you can decide, do you want to paint buttons down the front? Do you want to glue buttons down the front? Do you even want buttons on the front? That's totally up to you. And then you can also paint like a little patch if you want that. And I like to paint a little heart. I'm going to use Waverly's Crimson chalk paint, if I can get it open. And I just shook this up so there's lots of paint in the lid. So that's what I'm going to dip into. And I like to just freehand a little heart down on the bottom whenever I do snowmen. And I always try to drag the point out just a little. And then once this is dry, I'll doodle around it and it'll get doodled around and like little stitch marks on it. And I don't always paint it in the same spot, and I don't always do long and skinny. But I always did this when I painted snowmen in Oregon, and people would come and they're like, "Where's the heart?" That's just kind of my little signature when people get to know my craft booth. So those are going to dry, and then I'll spruce them up a little bit more. Now that my eyes have been set a little, I'm taking just a bamboo skewer from the barbecue section, and I'm going to put a little, oh, that's a little too much paint on there. I'm going to put a little line and a little dot in my snowman eyes. That's all going to need to dry, but I'm going to take a Sharpie. I'm just going to like draw a little line, outlining the nose, doing it on both of them. Not trying to get a perfect line, it's just kind of a doodly. And then I'm going to put a few little rounded lines to make it look like a carrot. So after that, then I need to glue my noses on, and then I can leave everything alone to dry for a little bit. I can't really go on to my next steps until things are good and dry. So I'm going to grab some super glue. Okay, so I have some of the gel super glue from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to put some on the back of my nose. I'm going to be pretty liberal with it because this has got glitter on it. And then I'm going to glue my nose on where I want it. And just the direction you put the nose can totally change the personality. Okay, these need a little bit of time to dry, especially the eyes and mouth bits. And so I'm going to take a pause for a few minutes, and then I'll be back as soon as these are dry enough to work with. It's time to start the doodling process. And so I just like to outline the heart. With a solid black line. And then I take a fine point Sharpie and I just kind of put a sketchy line on there. And then I do a couple little like stitch marks. Okay, that's how I outline the heart. Let me give you an up close so you can see a little better. Okay. And then I take my Sharpie and I'm starting up here at the hat. The hat's not going to be. You just kind of want to do some doodle lines. This is kind of an old country way of doing things, but is when I look at the eyes and I see if they need any touch-ups. I look at the noses, see if I want to do anything else on that. And I think I'm pretty much done. I just want to let them dry really, really well. And then I'm going to put on a scarf and a hat and we will be done. So I'm going to let these dry for at least a good hour to make sure those eyes are completely dry because they're pretty thick in the paint. And we'll be back. Okay, so now we got to put some hats and scarves and pretty these guys up a little bit. So what I'm doing is I've got some mittens from the Dollar Tree. I've got some socks. And I do have some hats. Not real sure about the hat. It's a little larger than I was expecting. If you do this, pay attention. I didn't pay attention. And I got the eyes up a little bit too high. I wasn't judging where the hat was going to go. So make sure you start your face down a little lower than you think you need to. Or judge your hat first, okay? Or try your hat. So first off, I'm going to take this mitten. And it's a mitten, not a glove. And I've got it turned inside out. And I just turned it back right side out, but I left the thumb inside out. And I'm going to put just a little dot of glue in there. I'm going to grab my silicone fingers here. And I'm just trying to turn this more into a... I'm just closing off the thumb is what I'm doing. Because I don't want a thumb sticking out the side of his head. Alright, then I'm going to take some batting. And I just have this left over from... I don't even remember what project I did. And I'm going to stuff some batting up in the top. You don't need a lot, just enough to keep the hat standing up. And then I'm going to stretch this over the top. And I'm going to go ahead and go past my eyes. And then I'm going to glue it on the back. And then how I'm going to fix the problem I have with my eyes is I'm going to put a little band of glue there. And I'm going to pull it up above the eyes and glue it. Okay. Then I can adjust the sides and pull it down and make sure that you're covering all that roughness from where the hat was on the pumpkins. You don't want any of that to show. Okay. So I'm going to stop right there on that one for just right now. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this guy. This is one of those really stretchy slipper socks. So I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to go past the eyes. Actually, might be a little too much batting. Stretch it down. Put it where you want it. Glue it on the back. And then make sure you've got your heel of your sock going to the back. And I'm going to work that batting down. Haven't glued down the front yet, so I can still reposition it. And the object is to get it to flop over to the side. And then I'm going to put a little glue above the eyes like I did on the other one. Scooch the edge of the sock up into that. And then glue down the sides, making sure it covers the rough edges from where I cut the hat off of the jack-o'-lantern stack. And then some jingle bells at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to get some jute. This was a spool of jute that didn't quite do what I wanted it to do. Okay, so I'm smushing that stuffing down into the head of my snowman. And I'm going to clip off a piece of jute. And I'm going to squish all of the batting out of the very tip of the sock. Now you can cut the sock end off if you'd rather have a shorter hat. In fact, let's try that. Let's do this. Let's make 2 hats out of this. So I'm stuffing the batting in just to give it some body. And then where I cut it, I'm tying it. Making sure that all the stuffing is down inside. And I'm going to tie this really tight because chances are it's going to ravel. And then I'm going to thread a jingle bell onto the jute. And tie it on with a double knot. And I'm just going to tie a little bow with the jute. Okay. His hat is done. He still needs a scarf. I can still use that for something. And this guy also needs a jingle bell. Now for the scarves. Oh, I also had the idea with the hat that you could cut it in half. So find where the seam is. Got half of my hat because the whole hat was just too darn big. Let me scoot these guys off to the side and bring in another guy. Okay. So what I'm thinking with this is I will stretch it around and I will glue it together in the back. So I'm just going to run a little glue up the edge where I cut it, and then get my finger stopper thingies on, and then glue it over. It's a pretty stretchy hat, so I think it'll be okay. And then because it's 2 layers, I have to do it again. and bring over the top layer. Just be careful, this glue is hot. Okay, so I've got this hat on. I'm going to pull it down just like I did before. And then I'm going to scrunch this up, put the glue over the eyes like I've been doing, and glue down the edge. And then let it just kind of fall where it wants to. I think they all need to have a pom-pom or a jingle bell. Now this one I didn't put any batting in because it's so thick anyway. And then you can just kind of fluff it however you want to fluff it to bring it to the front. So now I need to give them some scarves. And so I didn't have any fleece or anything that would go with the color of this hat to make a scarf with. So what I did is I cut away, this is the lining part, and this is the hat piece. So I'm taking the other half of the hat and I'm going to cut away the seams and we're going to see what we can reuse of this. Now we're just making a scarf, so it doesn't have to be huge. But at least it's the same colors. Okay. And I might have to get a little creative. All right, I kind of want the pink to hang down as a scarf. So I'm going to fashion the purple together. So I'm just gluing purple to purple here. And this work surface is silicone, so it's going to be very helpful. And then I'm going to fold this over, and I'm going to try to cut both pieces at the same time and make them somewhat straight. Okay, because what we cut was round and it didn't come out as a straight piece. So I am a little bit worried that this is going to fray, but we're going to see what we can do. I'm just kind of trying to make it scarf shaped. Sometimes when you don't have exactly what you need, you got to figure out how to make what you have work. Okay, so now I have a scarf piece where I glued the two other halves of the scarf, or the hat, together. So now I can position this behind him, her, it, whatever. And I don't like how it looks when it's tying. So I'm going to roll this up just a little bit to make it a little skinnier as it goes around the neck. Okay, and then I'm going to bring it across. I'm not cutting or gluing or anything, I'm just rolling it so that I have a skinnier piece of fabric that will go in around his neck. Now I'm not going to tie it like a normal scarf because I just don't have enough fabric and I don't want that much bulk. So what I'm going to do is grab my jute, pull the scarf through tightly, and then tie a knot. Then I'm going to fashion it and make sure that it's how I want it. Gonna dab a little hot glue in the back to hold it. And then these around. And I think he needs another jingle bell. Okay, so I have this tub of greenery I've prepped into little pieces. I just kind of sat there the other night, didn't feel like going to bed yet. So if I want greenery, I don't know. I kind of like it. All right, so let's put a little greenery in there. I'm just putting glue on the end of the greenery piece and tucking it in and letting it grab hold of the bell and the scarf and the wire and everything. Okay. And voila! Snowman is done. He needs a little bit of a stand or something in the back, so I need to ponder on that yet, but there's what that one's going to look like. All right, for this guy with the black and white hat, I have some black and white gingham check ribbon. Because I don't like doing things in even numbers. And then this guy's getting a little fancier than that other guy. I'm going to make a jute bow. You guys know how I make my jute bows by now. And I'm going to put some glue on the back of it. And I'm going to stick it right there. Alright, oh, I love how that one turned out. You never know what you're going to get when you start creating these guys, and I just love how that guy came out. Okay, here's a look at my finished snow crew. I have 10 of them. There's 2 pictures, 5 in each one. And I hope you like this project. If you do, give me a thumbs up and let me know what you think about it in the comments, please. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so and click that notification bell. This has been Crafting at Whimsy Wonderland. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.